in those days, all right,
Yeah.
you have siblings. You're in this small town, this small college town
Yeah.
in eastern Georgia,
Yeah.
Morehead State University's there. And truthfully, when we were there, that was kind of everything revolved kind of around Morehead State,
Right.
um, and around County High School.
That's
And
right.
and that's where all of life kind of happened. Sports were big
Hmm.
in that time. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we had, I mean, who's the NFL quarterback that came out of Morehead State?
Phil Sims.
Phil
Phil
Simms,
Sims
yeah.
went to Morehead State. Yeah. He
So
started, and Joe McGrain was a pitcher for the St. Louis Cardinals. He came from Morehead as well. And there was a gentleman there at the university who had played at Morehead State and then left and played for the New York Yankees and the Milwaukee Lakers for a time. Steve Hamilton back in the day.
that is
Um,
back in the day.
he came back to Morehead to be their baseball coach and then ultimately their athletic director before he passed.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
take us back a little bit
yeah,
into that back life to
yeah.
where where you could kind of say this is a significant moment. This is a significant moment in developing you and kind of helping you to be the Bill Black that you are today.
Yeah, no, that's great. Those days, I grew up, Paul, you lived across the street from me, there
Right.
for a minute, right? And
Not a whole lot longer than a minute, but yeah.
no, that's fine, but it was long enough for us to meet and become
Yeah.
friends. But my dad was a self-employed house painter, World War II veteran, World War II hero, wounded in action during the Battle of the Bulge in 1945, January, in Luxembourg. And my mom, for the most part, my entire life was blind.
Mm.
She lost eyesight in one of her eyes when she was only 29 years old, and then she lost the other eye when she was 44. And at that time, I was only 6, so I barely remember her ever being able to see completely. So and I was the baby of 5. So I had 2 older brothers that were 14 and 12 years older than me. So, by the time I was old enough to, understand life, they were already getting ready to go off, they were being drafted into Vietnam. Fortunately, they didn't have to go thanks to the prayers of my mother, I'm sure.
Mm.
But both were drafted and served, in various capacities during that time. And then I had 2 older sisters as well, and I was the baby. Um, and so, I was the kid, couldn't sit still. I was on a bicycle running the streets of Morehead, like a crazy man. And come home when the street light come on at night.
Yeah,
And
we could do that back then.
you could. And
Yeah.
my mom, by the time I was 8, 9 years old, mom was pushing her late 40s, so she was tired. She was like, get out of the house, go play, go run, come back for dinner. uh but I what happened, I was just this normal sized kid. And then my sophomore year in high school, I was still 5'9" at the time. I left my sophomore year in high school, and over the summer I grew 6 inches. So over a 3 month period, I went from 5'9" to 6'3", and so then I show up to school on the first day of my junior year, and everybody is like, "Wow,
Who,
have you all seen Billy Black?"
yeah, who are you?
Yeah, and I just kept growing, grew another 4 or 5 inches, after that, and pretty soon, um, the basketball coach, had thrown me into the middle of the varsity team. So I went from like the third string JV team my sophomore year to starting varsity my junior year, and then my senior year, uh, I just kept playing and got pretty decent, I guess, because I had opportunity to play basketball in college. And I was getting all these off calls and offers from colleges wanting me to come play, and there weren't major colleges. They were all, because I was such a late bloomer.
Yeah.
It was mostly smaller schools, Division II, NAIA, maybe mid-major Division I or two, but none of the big schools. But I had the opportunity to go to Lexington to play for a small college there called Transylvania University, and there, this was one of those pivotal moments in my life that has got me where I am today, because it got me out of the small town of Moorhead and
Hmm.
it took me to a larger town in Lexington, right, where there were a lot more opportunities. And I met people that are lifelong friends with me still to this day in college. And those guys had come from a different world perspective, and they knew where they were going and they knew what they wanted to do in life. And I had never really stopped and thought about that. It put me in a place where I had to really begin to think about, wow, there's more to this world than, riding my bicycle around Moorhead, Kentucky. And so they were very instrumental in getting me to think that there's a bigger world out there. So I played basketball there for a couple of years, and then my wife and I, we were childhood, we were high school sweethearts, and we got married at the end of our sophomore year in college, just kids, 19 years old, and then
Well, and that was a pivotal moment too.
that was a very pivotal moment.
Yeah.
And then I moved back to Moorhead to finish college at Moorhead State, where I was asked to play on Moorhead State's basketball team. So back in those days, you had to sit out a year. If you transferred, you had to sit
Yeah.
out a year before you could play. So I had a sit out year there at Moorhead State, where I practiced with the team and I was part of the team, but I was going to have to wait until the next year before I could play. Um, but then we had a little girl our junior year in college, and life became, other priorities took over. I wasn't going to get to play I wasn't going to have a lot of playing time at Moorhead State, even if I had stayed, right? If I had stayed and played. But now I was married. I had a little girl. There were bigger things in life that I needed to take care of. And so I went ahead and did not, after that year, I decided not to play basketball anymore. I went ahead and finished school, got my degree, and started into life as we know it
Mhm.
today. Yeah.